There. Okay. Well, welcome to Getting to Know Jesus. We are in lesson 1.
Yay.
We're off on an adventure walking with Jesus through his life and teachings. Now, we're going to talk about in the fullness of time how God prepared the world for his son. Very interesting. Yeah, you might want to get a better view there. Okay.
Yeah.
How God prepared the world for his son. Here's a map of Israel. Here's Jerusalem right here. We don't know how far south Jesus got in Israel. Not very far. He did get around Judea. Here's the Sea of Galilee, Capernaum. We know about the furthest north he got was Tyre and Sidon, and over here to Caesarea Philippi. But this area from Sidon down to around in here is no bigger than the state of New Jersey.
That's where you floated on?
We were right in there floating the Dead Sea. Yes. But this whole area is not much bigger than the state of New Jersey. Really. I mean, it's so interesting that in that respect it's so small to what we're used to, but yet it's so big in the history of the world and what transpired in that little area. In the fullness of time, this is the Mount of Olives towards the top. There is where the temple used to stand, and the old city of Jerusalem back along around in there.
Is that actually where the mosque is?
Is there a mosque?
That's where the Muslims built their mosque.
And supposedly Muhammad is sending from heaven at the bottom of the mosque?
Well, I don't know about that,
Yeah,
but
that's what I heard.
this was where they say, hey, look what we did to the Jews. And we're proud of
And they're
ourselves.
saying that they have to build a new Jewish temple right where the mosque is at.
Well, that is the theory. I will wait and see whether it happens or not.
Because
God's in charge. It will not happen unless God makes it happen.
And I heard that they're preparing to build it right now.
Oh yeah, they're thinking about it, but I don't know if they will or not. Huh?
What was he saying?
He's thinking that the Jews are eventually going to rebuild their temple on that site.
Oh, I have a question. Is there a modern Israel?
The modern city of Jerusalem are these skyscrapers you see right back here.
Oh, okay.
That's the new city of Jerusalem. Over here to the north, over here to the west, and all the way around here, even down here to the south. This old city of Jerusalem comes about right in there.
So they have it blended? Oh,
Yeah, he just runs right into it. So, and here's the gravestone. This is the cemetery on both sides of the Kidron Valley. It goes way down south of this area.
Do they have the grave of King David and Solomon and all them?
Yes, but I do not know particularly where. I was not really worried or trying to follow where they were buried. Christy?
So, Jesus died in Jerusalem?
Yes.
Outside of Jews.
Yes.
Not true.
Jesus either died just outside this wall up here, or the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which I think is that building right there. And it was outside the city wall of Jerusalem at that time.
No.
So either one is a possibility. But yes, he died just outside the wall of the old city. That was long before the new city ever came about.
Okay, so why was he killed outside the city wall? Did that have meaning to where they say...
It has meaning, but we don't have time to go into it here, or we'll never get to where we need to get to where we're going to go.
Okay.
So we're going to be some things that only happen, that we only want to happen when it's the right time. For example, having a baby. You don't want to have a baby too soon, it'd be premature. You don't want to have a baby when it's past due, it may be too big and a little hard on mama coming out. Somebody, I think, recently had a 13-pound baby. And if I recall, she had it natural. Just a few weeks ago.
You know what?
And I think it was here in Tampa or in this area.
My baby was 10 pounds, 9.5 ounces, right? She was not the biggest baby born at the hospital back in 1984. There was an 11-pound baby boy born all natural.
Well,
I
you know,
couldn't imagine.
and for thousands of years, they didn't have anesthesia and that stuff to help mother with childbirth. So you don't, you also don't want to be too young when you're having a baby. If you're still a teenager and you're not ready, mature enough and ready to care for a child, you don't want to be too old.
Yeah.
I don't think you want to be raising your children when you're 60 plus years old. You want to kind of have them growing out of the house by that time and collecting grandchildren. And when you get older, it's harder on the health of the mother and the child, for
So
that
it's kind
matter.
of like for me, for my career, maybe I'm doing computer work all the time, fixing computers home there and there, but I just wonder why I don't have a job yet.
Well, that's another subject. Again, we're going to continue on here. So bottom line is there is a time or a season. Being ready for a particular career or a job. And being ready for that assignment when it comes. Having the training that you need. See, you got the training. Now when I say my computer isn't working, you've got the skill and know-how to come and fix it. You've got skill and know-how. Now somebody may say, we need a computer technician. And you'll step right up and say, I'm here. They'll say, you're just exactly what we're looking for. In the fullness of time, it was time. And so, with all those things we are doing, there's a right time and a right place. And we are trying to acknowledge that. There are some discussions over whether God causes things to happen or simply just knows when they will happen. The point of our focus is that Jesus did not come until it was time for him to appear. So, in the fullness of time. In almost every book, movie, or story has an introduction. So this is the introduction to the Walking with Jesus Bible Study series. In the fullness of time, it's interesting to observe how God works in the background, preparing an individual, a culture, a locale, or the world for an event, and then, when it is time, he watches it unfold according to his divine foreknowledge and plan. God knew there was going to be...
Why was he silent for 400 years?
We're going to have to ask him that when we get there. But we'll get down to that, and we will try to touch on that a little bit.
Yeah.
So, it was the fullness of time politically. 4 areas I want to kind of address tonight. The first one is fullness of time politically. The intertestament period from around 400 BC to the ministry of John the Baptist, the Jews had no prophet. They had no communication from God. But God was working and watching in the background as the world prepared for the arrival of his Son. So why did God abandon them? I would say because they abandoned God. They abandoned God. And he left them to their own. And he knew that in time, when it was the right time, there would be those who would be searching for the Messiah. And he would send his Son, and it was the fullness of time. During this time, the Persian rule, 539 to 331 BC, they were in the Persian captivity. And it was during the Persian captivity, that was the time was best renowned for rebuilding the temple under Nehemiah, one of the last prophets. So Nehemiah got permission from the king of Persia to go back to Jerusalem and rebuild the city, even though they had been captured from there and scattered all over the known world at that time.
Was it King Xerxes or something?
There was Jarius and Cyrus, and I don't remember right off the top of my head which one it was that he got permission from.
Is it in the Persia? Where's Persia?
Persia would be,
Modern day
if Israel
Iran.
was down here, the Mediterranean Sea is over here, Saudi Arabia is over here, that's modern Persia.
Modern day Persia is Iran now.
So it's,
Well, Iran, yeah.
it's Persia.
So that's
is
further
Saudi Arabia.
east
Okay.
of Saudi Arabia, north and east. So anyhow, Nehemiah's temple was bigger than Solomon's temple. And then later, some 20, 30 years before Jesus was born, the Herods were ruling in Israel. And King Herod started rebuilding the temple, and he made it bigger and grander and fancier than Nehemiah's temple, which was bigger and grander and fancier than Solomon's temple. Very beautiful structure, and it was being built while Jesus was on this earth.
But I thought Nehemiah came before Solomon.
Nehemiah's temple had been built here in this period here, and then when Jesus was on earth, Herod was building a grander, building the temple, even making them more spectacular,
That was
and
not
he
the
built on it for
Babylonian-
about 60 plus years, and then about 5 years before Jerusalem was, he completed it, about 5 years before Jerusalem was destroyed, and it was all torn down.
That's not the Babylonian tower, was it?
No, that Tower of Babel is a whole different thing, way back in the book of Genesis. We're
Oh,
over here.
okay.
We're in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John right now. We're getting ready to.
I'm kind of confused, but when Jesus and the disciples looked at the temple and Jesus said that Solomon's temple there would not be one stone left atop another.
Well, he was talking about the temple, which includes Solomon's temple, Nehemiah's version, and what Herod was working on.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, in 70 AD, it was all torn down. And that is a pile of rubble if you go there. And they leveled it off, and they built the Muslim mosque on top of it. But you can go down underneath, about 30 feet below ground or lower, and see the excavations and the ruins of the original Temple Mount. What's left of it, what they've been able to go in and dig out underneath there and look at it. So the Persian rule, it was a time when the Jews were scattered all over the known world, and many longed to be a nation again in their homeland. So it was the fullness of time politically. They wanted to give back to their country, to their nation. Today is a fullness of time politically also. We have efforts being made to make a one world government that is shaping up against Christ and His church. The idea, of course, the Muslims are trying to say that we're going to be the one world government. The United Nations is trying to say we're going to be the one world government. I don't know what other stuff that's going on in between and hiding behind the lines that thinks they're going to be the one world government, but I'll tell you this for sure.
Illuminatis and Freemason?
Do what?
Illuminatis and Freemason?
I don't think they're trying to be a one world government. The Illuminati might be, I don't know, but they're going to fail, but they're going to try because they don't think they need God. Christy?
See, as of today, the government, the people now, they're trying to say, I don't like this version of the Messiah. It's still the truth, but they don't realize that is the truth, and that's that.
That's what's going on. If we don't get a move on, we're going to run out of time before we get time run out. So we're going to have to get along here. But the bottom line to this is mankind has tried for centuries to exist without allegiance to God. And the crime and the problems of the world reflect that disregard. All the trouble we have in this world is people thinking that they are smarter than God. I don't have to do things God's way. I can do things my way. And of course, you can look at your own life and you can see where you've done things my way, your way, and that's gotten you into more trouble. Now we're trying to learn about Jesus so we can learn how God wants us to live and we can do things God's way and hopefully get God's blessing and find definitely a better life. Many people are searching for that absolute truth and divine power in which we can fully find security and safety. So it's also the fullness of time economically. In the Jewish world, there was a constant talk about pending depression. They were just constantly depressed. Like people, Jesus called them like sheep without a shepherd. And when we were in Israel, that's what we observed. A lot of people run around doing their daily thing, but it's kind of like there's really no hope in their hearts, no hope in their eyes. They do not know about the Messiah that they've been looking for thousands of years has come, and they missed him. And we had a friend that was traveling in France a couple of years ago, was in France for a little more of an extended period of time, and commented about the French people. They don't have any God in their life, and they run around just kind of like zombies, just existing, but no real sense of fulfillment, no sense of purpose. In the Jewish world, in Jesus' day, or this time here, they were finding out, the Jews were finding out that they could not rely on their financial prosperity to give them happiness or security. And heavy taxes were being pressed upon them by the Roman government. And more of their freedoms were being taken away from them. Why did we fight the Revolutionary War? Heavy taxes were being imposed upon the people, and more of their freedoms were being taken away from them. And look at what's happening in our nation today. Heavy taxes are being imposed upon the people, and more freedoms are being taken away from us. How much further is that going to go? Chris?
I have a great story to tell about the Revolutionary War.
Well, we don't have, I'm sorry, but we don't have time for it.
It's
We'll
a
share
short
during
story.
discussion time.
It's only a short story. When Americans were fighting the British in one of the parts of the United States, they were losing the war, and they were about to lose the whole Revolutionary War, and they were outnumbered, about to lose the battle. And somehow a big, thick fog came out of nowhere
Yeah.
and overshadowed them, and they were able to get the victory.
We
And
believe
that
that
showed
God
that God-
intervened so that they could get to safety and get out of that predicament.
Yeah.
All right. Well, it's the Jews can't rely on their tax on their finances. Now, during this time, Greek rule came in from 331 to 167 BC. You've heard of Alexander the Great. He dies at age 33. Egypt rules from 331, ruled Judea from 331 to 198 BC, and Cleopatra lived during this era. Everybody knows about Cleopatra. She was living right there in the time just before Jesus came, by a couple hundred years.
Ah.
Alexander is successful in conquering the world because he teaches them Greek language and Greek culture.
So she is real.
She is real. Yeah. Fact of history. And so, came out of
She's
Egypt.
the queen of Egypt, right?
So, Alexander taught the people the Greek language and the Greek culture, and so everybody can speak Greek. Some people can speak Hebrew, some people can speak Aramaic, but everybody can speak Greek.
Is Cleopatra, is she the queen of Egypt?
You'd have to go back and watch the movie. I don't remember that part. So, or go back and read look it up on Wikipedia.
No,
It'll tell you. I just mentioned that she existed during that time. And Alexander also scattered the Jews even more than they'd already been scattered. So they've been scattered some, now he scatters them even more. Today is the fullness of time economically also. We are constantly reminded that money cannot buy safety, freedom, hope, and real life. The Battle of 9/11, the World Trade Center, was a symbol of our money. And what took years to build came down in just a couple of hours. Only took hours to destroy. And throughout history, there have been people who have acquired large sums of money, a lot of them through working, a lot of them through investing, some through inheritance, and a collapse in the stock market, a collapse in their investments, bad decisions on their part, and the money's all gone, and the next thing you know, they are homeless and penniless, and so what good was all that money if you don't know how to manage it and spend it wisely? So we realize that we cannot count on our money to buy safety and freedom. Jesus is the only solution to that need. Now, it's also the fullness of time morally. The Jews are feeling that God doesn't love them anymore. They've strayed away so far, so long, they don't have any hope or peace. They engage in sin like it doesn't matter. They are full of moral decay and corruption. Does that remind you of anyone that you see in the world today? Do we have any of that going on in our community, in our county, in our state, in our nation?
I think our nation is pretty worse.
It's just kind of the general nature of a lot of people in the world today. God's not there, He doesn't care, I'll do what I want. And so what?
Pharaoh.
Do what?
She was a female pharaoh.
You can call it that way. Okay? So it was during this time that the Maccabean rule came in, 167 to 63 BC. Now the Maccabeans, in an attempt to find some freedom, rebelled from the Greek and Egyptian rule, and they do experience some degree of independence. Because they're really not causing any big problems, so the Egyptians don't go up there and reconquer them, and the Greeks don't go back in and bother them, they just kind of leave them alone.
So who are exactly the Maccabees?
They were they were part Jew, part Gentile sect that got off away from the mainstream, hid out in caves for a large part, and just didn't engage in most of
Is that where the Dead Sea
society.
Scrolls came from?
The Dead Sea Scrolls came from the Maccabees and the Dead Sea in the Qumran caves.
Wow.
They belong to that era, yes. So today is the fullness of time morally. We look at how sexual immorality and moral decay, lying, cheating, corruption. I don't have to be accountable to anybody I don't want to be accountable to. That's the attitude of some people. And we see that it's getting worse and worse and worse. We're getting something to the point of where Sodom and Gomorrah were when God rained hellfire and brimstone down on them and said, that's the end of you. And if God decides to destroy this earth by fire, the only thing that's going to save us from being burned eternally is Jesus Christ.
Amen.
And so it is the fullness of time. More and more people are choosing the pleasures of the moment, ignoring and then complaining about the consequences of their sin, and wondering why they feel so guilty and hopeless.
Yeah, that's why there's Jesus that got to come in.
A drug addict will use their drugs, and then they'll blame society for their drug addiction instead of saying, I'm the one that chose to do this.
It's a choice.
What'd you say, Martha?
It is a choice.
It's a choice. An alcoholic chooses that
Oh,
first
that's
drink
right.
and the second drink and the third drink. Somebody that's into pornography or sexual immorality or rape or prostitution, they'll keep going at it until they get caught. And they'll say, well, that's okay, everybody else is doing it. And so they don't seem to realize the consequences of their action. And then they get some sort of a consequence. Their health is destroyed, their family or marriage is destroyed, their job and career is destroyed, or their other things that can happen. They catch a disease because of their behavior. Then they say, oh dear, rescue me, rescue me, rescue me. Well, they put themselves in that situation. So, it is also the fullness of time religiously. Now, although many of the Jews are kind of aimlessly hoping God is dead, He's not paying any attention to us, and we're hopeless, there are some Jews who are realizing that the things that we're told about in Daniel and Ezekiel and some of those other Old Testament prophecies are happening right around them. Which means the Messiah is near. Messiah is coming. Perhaps any day now we could have Messiah. So Jews are seeing the signs that God had foretold. And it's during this time that the Roman rule comes in, 63 years before Christ, about 70 years after Christ. Now, the Roman rule does not end at 70 AD. Israel ends at 70 AD. That's when the Romans conquered them. They leveled everything. They killed as many of the Jews as they could, or took them into slavery. And all during all these periods, the Persian rule, the Greek rule, the Maccabean rule, the Roman rule, the Jews have been spread further and further and further, scattered around the known world at that time.
So the Roman had control. That's why they had Pontius Pilate at the time.
Yeah, they were in control. The Jews were subject to the Romans. They were the power. It would be like if some foreign government came in and conquered the United States. Well, it's like the United States during the Revolutionary War, or before the Revolutionary War. The British were in control of the United States. And we, of course, different than Israel, we decided we wanted to be a free nation. We fought for it and got it and all that.
Yeah.
But now, one of the nice things about the Romans, they conquered a larger area than what the Greeks had held. So they conquered a larger portion of the world. They scattered the Jews out even further. Augustus and Tiberius Caesar were reigning during this era. And the Romans built roads. They encouraged travel. They encouraged commerce. They encouraged trading with other nations. And so the things that Israel made here could go down to Africa. They could go over to Persia and other parts of the known world, and over into Europe and Italy and those parts. very easily because the Romans said, hey, we want your stuff, and we'll send our stuff to you, and you'll buy our stuff, and we'll trade with one another, and really made the world a whole lot better place. And so they provided ease of travel, but they also scattered the Jews, like I said, out even further. They provided ease of travel, they built roads and encouraged commerce. This helped establish trade between nations, and when the church was started, it helped the spread of the gospel. Because it was so easy for the Christians, when they left Jerusalem, to run to the other towns. They would gather the Jews and say, hey, the Messiah has come. He was Jesus of Nazareth. He died on the cross for your sins. And if you'll believe in him, you can be forgiven and have eternal life. And so that message became very popular. It spread fast. The church grew rapidly for quite some time because of that contribution.
And it's so interesting that Nebuchadnezzar had that dream of the statue, and part of it's gold, part of it's silver, part of it's bronze.
Well, that was the vision that Daniel saw, yes. And see, it was in that stuff that they saw that happening. They realized Roman was the feet of clay. And so they said, hey, Messiah must be near. Messiah must be near. So today is the fullness of time religiously also. After neglecting God, more and more people are finding Jesus as the only one who has the answers to real life, its purpose, and its significance. You guys are here because you've come to realize the world is futile. But Jesus is hope and life and security. And so that's why you're here in this Bible study. So when they put their faith in Him, they will find the world has been looking for. They will find what the world has been looking for since the days of Adam and Eve.
So you're telling me Jesus came during the time there was no war?
We're going to get there. Yes, this was the only time in the history of the world that there was no war on earth, when Jesus was here on earth.
Wow.
Yeah. We have internet communication and communication tools that never before seen that we can use to communicate the gospel. They had roads and ease of travel. Now we've got the internet, and we've got people translating the Bible into other languages, and we can get you to any other nation on earth in just a matter of hours through jet travel, and we can beam a message. This video can be up on the internet, and people in India and Pakistan and Australia, Philippines, Europe, and other parts of the world can watch it in just seconds. It just takes seconds, a fraction of a second, to go up to the satellite, over to their server, down to their computer, and they can watch and learn about Jesus. Now the Persians, the Greeks, and the Romans had scattered the Jews all over the world. The Greeks gave them a common language. Everybody spoke and understood Greek. That made it easy. No matter where you went, you didn't have to learn their language. All you had to do was just speak Greek. They knew it. The Romans gave the world a common government. Roman rule during the time of Christ was on earth was the only time when the earth was free of war. From when Cain killed Abel and Tower of Babel, and man has been jealous of the other man, and I want your stuff, and so I'm going to kill you so I can have your stuff. No, you're not. I'm going to kill you so you won't have my stuff. And back and forth over thousands of years now of Earth's history. But only that time when Jesus was here was there peace. However, during this time, the Jews are fear-ridden, insecure. They're looking for something to hold on to. It's into this world that God sends His Son to bring hope, salvation, and a better way of living for all. All that really matters is walking with Jesus one day at a time. And that's what we're here to do. So our conclusion is this. We're on a journey through His life and teachings. We're on an adventure with Jesus to see what He taught, what He did, and how it can change our lives and help us to become more like Him. And you're invited here at this time and purpose for this unique purpose. God has conditioned you. God's prepared you. Your hearts are ready. 2 years ago, 10 years ago, you weren't ready. Now you're ready. You can learn about Jesus. It's going to change your life. You're going to take what you learn about Him. You're going to share it with others. It's going to change their life. And this world is going to become a better place because of who Jesus is in you. So the world is wanting waiting for your contribution to help further the kingdom of Christ. Prepare to embark on the journey of your life. And of course, you've been through the last part of it, now you get to the front part of it, you know a little bit of what this journey is about. Next week, we're going to look at 4 authors. Who are the men who God chose to write the 4 Gospels, and what is their perspective on the life of Christ?
One was a tax collector, one was a doctor, one was a disciple of Jesus. I forget the other one.
Well, we'll find out next week, and we'll tell you a little bit more about them than that. So you'll come and bring a friend. Right now, we're going to go over to our discussion questions and break up into our discussion groups.
But there's only 4 of us.